Again? Really? I suppose at least it's a 4-game point streak to start the season. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where for the second straight game, the Kraken kind of blow a chance to get 2 points in the standings, but still end up with 1. It's this time a shootout loss to the Ottawa Senators, who came into this game kind of reeling at the start of their season, having lost 3 of their first 4, and also having lost their best player and captain in Brady Tkachuk. Of course, the Kraken, I think for good reason, decided to give Decord a bit of a rest, so Grubauer gets the start, and it may have had an impact on how this game ended. Either way, I think if you had come into the season again saying the Kraken would get 6 points in their first 4 games, you probably would have taken it. It's just a little bit frustrating how those 4 points, especially these last 2, have come about. Really just how these last 2 points have come about. And I suppose if we're being perfectly honest with ourselves, the fact that the Kraken are still leading the Pacific Division, tied with Vegas, but they have a head-to-head tiebreaker there. And there are a lot of things to like about how this team has started the season, even with a new system that they're clearly still learning, and that I think can definitely be reasonably to blame for some of the lack of execution that they've had here and there. The lack of crispness, I think, is really what I was looking for there. They just occasionally have these moments where they're not necessarily on the same page, and yeah, learning a new system, I think, can be somewhat to blame for that. But anyway, again, considering it has been a pretty good start to the season, all things considered for the Kraken, certainly I think better than anybody would have expected. And yeah, there are some good signs of the work ethic, and even the power play's actually gotten off to a decent start. While yeah, I think it's reasonable to be frustrated with how the end of these last 2 games has gone, I'm sure part of my, I don't know if pessimism's the right word, or lack of excitement right now is probably more to do with the performance of the other team that people are a little bit more invested in right now in Seattle and how they've played their last 2 games. They are completely choking away an opportunity to do the first thing, or do the thing that they have never done, be the last team to do the thing that they've never done in franchise history. Obviously, we're talking about the Mariners choking away a 2-game series lead in the ALCS to now lose 2 and hopefully win 2 of the next 3 to go to the World Series for the first time. But we'll put that aside, try to not let the negativity there affect how this Kraken season has started, because generally speaking, I do think there's a lot to like about what we've seen from the Kraken. And there was a fair amount to like about how this game got started. Maybe not the most high energy start from the Kraken. They kind of have another bit of a slow start, but they still managed to get back on the scoreboard first. For the 3rd time in the first 4 games, the Kraken opened the scoring with a few minutes here where it was good to have your first name be Shane and playing in this game, as Shane Wright picks up the first goal for the Kraken. A nice little play to keep the puck in the offensive end by Mason Marchment, who I think had his best game for the Kraken here early on in the season. But yeah, nice little toe drag, kind of deke from him to get around the defender right up at the blue line, get out to the far side, and then cross a pass all the way over to the far face-off circle where it's Brandon Montour, who has a lot of time and space to fire off a shot, does end up hitting the goaltender pretty cleanly, but the rebound comes out right to Wright, who is up by the net in the right spot at the right time. He takes a couple whacks at it. The first one goes right off the pad and comes back to him, but the second one, he sees a hole in the defense and is able to put it over the pad and into the near side of the net to give the Kraken that early 1-0 lead and get Wright his first goal of the season. As the Kraken continue to find ways to get up in front of the net and make good things happen with that net front presence that, like I said, as far as good signs here early in the season, it's something we certainly didn't see enough of last season and really haven't seen enough of pretty much the entire existence of the Kraken. I think in the second season they were a little bit better at it, but yeah, certainly last year and even the last year of the Hackstall era, net front presence in the offensive end has not been a strength for this team, and that at least seems like something they're trying to work on here early, and Wright is able to capitalize by being in front of the net. But a couple minutes later, it's the other Shane playing for the other team, and Shane Pinto, who's gotten off to a pretty good start to his season, that capitalizes on another bouncing puck, and not just capitalizes off a bouncing puck, but also capitalizes on a second straight Kraken penalty kill that, while successful, just completely collapses and loses all defensive integrity as the players coming out of the box and trying to get back into the play. But before, I can't remember who it was that was in the box in this particular case. It was, I think Winterton was the next penalty. So I can't remember who it was that took the first one here for the Kraken. But either way, before he can get back in the play, it's a shot from Ehlers. The Kraken are kind of scrambling to get back defensively. Two guys end up in the same spot. One of them, in Oleksiak, does end up getting in the way of the Ehlers shot, but it bounces off of his skate, unfortunately, right out into the high slot onto the tape of Pinto, who puts it past Grubauer. And here, it's hard to blame Grubauer very much for this. It is a really unfortunate bounce, especially that it goes right onto the tape of another opposing player. I do think he was a little bit out of position and probably committed a little too hard to the shot from Eller, considering he had defensemen in front of him, but it's hard to blame him too much. It's just an unfortunate bounce off of Oleksiak's skate that goes right to the wrong place and ties this game up at 1. It doesn't help the Kraken that they do pretty much immediately send the Senators back to the power play. This time, I think it was the one that Winterton goes to the box. And while they were successful until just a few seconds after the last power play, this time they aren't able to even successfully make the kill happen to try to get the guy out of the box, as, well, again, it comes off of a bit of a bounce, but the Senators this time connect on the power play. A shot pass to the far side. I think it was going to be a pass the whole time, but it ends up getting partially intercepted by Gaudreau on the way, but just kind of goes off of his stick. He only really serves to slow it down, but still ends up getting onto the tape of the intended target, and he wheels around, fires off the shot, that being David Perron, by the way, who is able to collect the partially deflected pass across Grubauer's face, and he still is able to beat Grubauer on the near side. This is kind of one where it is a shot off of a crossing pass, but I feel like Gaudreau got enough of it to slow it down where Grubauer probably should have been able to get back and make this save that ends up going off of, I think, his shoulder and into the top of the net. Still, another kind of weird bouncing puck that's hard to follow, so it feels like one that Decord probably would have saved, but I mean, Decord had a tough night last night, and it definitely, you can see where some of that cross-up would have happened. I don't know, maybe Grubauer thinks that Gaudreau is able to fully intercept it, and then just that's what gets him out of position a little bit here. It's hard to say for sure, but it feels like one he probably could have had. Still, the problem here is definitely going to the penalty kill twice in short succession right after you took the early lead. And then from there, the Kraken really don't do much to help themselves as they allow Ottawa to get another pretty good press to try and extend the lead. Fortunately, that isn't allowed to happen. Grubauer does have a bit of an adventure outside of his crease at one point, makes a save that kind of rebounds out. I think this might have actually been before even Shane's goal. This might have been early on in the game, but I can't remember exactly where in the first. It happened a few times over the course of the game, so I don't know exactly when the one I'm thinking of is, but there was a few times where Grubauer would make a save but let up a rebound and then kind of just be a little bit, again, out of position, kind of sliding out of the crease a little bit, and that would force him to have to scramble back and then make a follow-up save, which he was able to make a handful of pretty nice-looking saves. Just all but one of them over the course of the game was somewhat a self-inflicted situation that he put himself in to have to make the good save, and at least he was able to do it on pretty much every occasion. It was still a nerve-wracking goaltending performance to watch, to say the least. I mean, at least it's early in the season, so these don't feel like the most meaningful games, but it still was an interesting viewing experience for Grubauer in his first start. But the Kraken are still, with the help of Grubauer, able to get through the rest of the first period without giving Ottawa more of a lead, as the Kraken still have yet to go down by 2 goals in a game this season. And then as we get into the second period, the Kraken do kind of have to weather another storm here early on as they give Ottawa another chance to extend the lead, but are able to survive it. Not long after, though, back the other way, it's the Stevenson line, who has had kind of a tough start to the season. They've been either unnoticeable or bad, kind of. I mean, Stevenson in particular has not had a good first 3 games for the Kraken. He's kind of allowed the 1 goal, directly assisted the 1 goal in the previous game, and other than that has been not really that noticeable. But on this play, it's a very nice play from that entire line on the forecheck. It starts with Tolvanen down behind the Ottawa net, fighting for a puck, getting it up along the boards. and at least forces it to not get fully controlled tape to tape up to the next Ottawa player, though it does end up on the stick of an Ottawa player as they start to try to break out. But right in his back pocket is Jaden Schwartz. He's able to lift the stick, take the puck, then wheel around and find Stevenson, who reads the play well and gets back into the high slot. Schwartz finds him quickly. Stevenson picks his spot, takes his shot, and buries his first of the season. Actually, not quite that directly. He puts it off of the post, then off the post, crossbar, I should say, goes off the crossbar, then off the back of the goaltender, and then dribbles into the goal behind him. So Stevenson is able to get his first of the season, and the Kraken even things up here early in the second. Then they get a power play and a chance to take the lead, which this power play does look particularly dangerous, and not far into it, with the first unit out there, McCann has a pretty wide open net from a tight angle, but this is a goal that McCann is going to score 8 to 9 times out of 10. He just puts it wide, misses the net entirely, and the Senators are able to, by the skin of their teeth, survive that Kraken power play and also survive the rest of the second period as the Kraken continue to, I wouldn't say it was overwhelming momentum, but certainly got the better of the Senators throughout the rest of this middle frame, but we still get to the third with things still evened up at 2. And then as we start the third, for the third time in 3 periods, it's the Kraken on the board early, this time thanks to a power play that they get early in the period that really doesn't go much of anywhere throughout most of it, but as the second unit gets out there and we get into the final push for the Kraken for this power play, they're able to work the puck towards the net, and a nice play by, I want to say, Eberle to kind of cross in front, shoves the puck into a pad, kind of like what we saw from Wright with the first goal, but the puck kind of bounces away from him out to the far side where the only player there is Chandler Stevenson. He gets right up to it at the low face-off circle, and with half a net to shoot out, the goaltender still trying to figure out where the puck is. Before he spots it, Stevenson has it on his stick and has it past him into that near side of the net to give the Kraken the 3-2 lead and power play goal. Their third power play goal as a team on the season, as they, I don't know if they can keep up this kind of pace throughout the season, but this power play is actually looking like a pretty decent NHL power play. Again, not a world-beating power play or anything. It's not a power play going out there like an Avalanche or Oilers where you almost expect a goal even if they're still like 30% on the power play. Every time it goes out, you feel like there's a good chance they can score. We're not anywhere near that territory, but at least feels like when they go out there, they could score, which has not always been the case with Kraken power plays, as I think we well know throughout the history of this team. There have been large chunks of time, certainly in last season, when we kind of would rather the Kraken even just stay at 5-on-5 rather than have to go to a power play. And at least right now, it does feel good to be going to a power play for the Kraken. And they would get another chance on the power play midway through the third to try to extend the lead. But while they do get a couple more chances, they aren't able to do so. And we get into the final minutes with Ottawa getting one last good push right before they pull the goaltender. And unfortunately, just like in the previous game, just as they pull the goaltender, get the sixth guy out on the ice, a shot from pretty well out just goes right past Grubauer. Cousins' shot here is way up by the top of the face-off circle along the boards, even above the face-off circle along the boards. He just picks the perfect time to shoot this puck as he's looking at the net, waiting for someone to maybe take Grubauer's eyes away for just a split second, and Alexiak does kind of give him that opportunity as he crosses in front of Grubauer's face right as Cousins takes the shot. Still, Grubauer comes off of his post just as the puck gets up to Cousins and then doesn't get back to the post with the puck still along the near side. There's not really anywhere on the far side for Cousins to shoot at, so I don't know why Grubauer is shading to that side and leaving so much net to shoot at on the near side. Again, I wouldn't say this is fully Grubauer's fault. For Alexiak's part in it, maybe don't cross in front of your goaltender right in his face as the opposing player is clearly looking at the net. And if you're going to, you better be ready to block the puck, which he doesn't do on this occasion. He actually did do earlier in the game. He kind of got in Grubauer's face, but made a block on a puck that I don't know if Grubauer is going to be able to save it. On this particular occasion, though, Alexiak just provides that split-second moving screen, and Grubauer, who kind of got a bit out of position, doesn't get back into it in time. And Ottawa, with less than 2 minutes left, ties the game, and we, a couple minutes later, head to overtime, just like in the previous game to start this road trip. Unlike that previous game to start the road trip, though, in Montreal, this time the Kraken do possess the puck for the vast majority of the overtime period and get a couple good chances on net, but aren't able to score, and eventually this one does head to the shootout, which of course, Grubauer's first start of the season, the shootout is exactly where you want to be, right? Right? Well, it goes just about as well as you would expect it to. Grubauer lets in 2 of 3. The Kraken don't score on their only 2 opportunities, since as soon as they don't score the second one and then Ottawa scores their second score of their third attempt, then the game's over, because it doesn't matter if the Kraken score their third one or not. Ottawa still wins the 3-frame shootout, and the Kraken, after blowing that late lead, aren't able to end it in overtime and end up losing the shootout. So they only end up with 1 point in the standings. And again, you're in a spot where you have the 6 points in 4 games, which is pretty decent. You've got 2 points in your first 2 of this road trip. But it's hard not to feel like you could have easily been 4-0 at this point. If you just close out these last 2 games, you just don't fall apart on the penalty kill right at the end of the game in Montreal. You never get to overtime. You just win that one in regulation. And then this one, you are able to close it out in the last 2 minutes. Then you could easily at this point be 4-0. But for now, 6 points in the standings is enough to lead the Pacific Division, and still probably better than any of us were honestly expecting to start the season, especially with 2 of the first 4 games coming against Vegas and Ottawa, 2 teams that coming into the season there were some pretty high expectations of. Now Vegas has gotten off to a, for them, okay start. Again, they have 6 points in 4 games as well, so I suppose that's not terrible. And then for Ottawa, it has been a pretty bad start to the season, and they're missing Brady Tkachuk, and you still found a way to cough this one up and lose, but you didn't get shut out like you did twice last season against them, so I suppose it's still improvement. Anyway, like I said, lots to like still about where the Kraken are at right now. They're still playing with some good work ethic. Yeah, the dots aren't always... the passing isn't always lining up. There's definitely some moments, even in their defensive end, or kind of especially in their defensive end, and especially coming out of penalty kills, where it doesn't seem like they're all on the same page at the same time. But they are still much better on the forecheck than maybe they've... Aside from maybe that second year where they actually kind of were pretty good on the forecheck randomly. The middle year of the Hackstall era, a team that was supposed to score basically from the forecheck, and that's it, just dump and chase and go forecheck. The only year they were actually good at it was the middle of the 3 years. But they are actually playing pretty well on the forecheck and not completely reliant on it like they were for most of those first 3 years. And they've also still been pretty good in transition for the most part. Maybe not quite as clean transitioning from one end of the ice to the other in this game. And the back-checking transition was okay, not terrible, not great in this one, but they still were able to keep Ottawa away from Grubauer, keep Ottawa away from the net front area, which is pretty good. That was a little bit of they had a bit of a hiccup as far as keeping Montreal away from the net front. The Habs were able to get to the net front pretty consistently in the previous game in front of Decord, but the Kraken are able to once again kind of lock Ottawa out of that area for the most part, and then get to Ottawa's net front. So some good stuff that you like to see there, stuff that will lead to long-term success. It does feel like a game where if you'd had Decord in net for this one, they probably would have won it. But nonetheless, still at least a point, still starting the season with a 4-game point streak and a power play that's actually watchable, so that's nice. And actually, one last thing that I did like about this game as opposed to really any of the previous 3 games, there wasn't really a line for the Kraken in this game that just kind of was getting caved in all night long. The first couple games, that was kind of Stevenson line. Wright's line also hadn't been necessarily great in the first 2 games at home. And then in the previous game, it was definitely the Stevenson line that was just getting absolutely caved. In this game, really all 4 lines played pretty well. The 4th line didn't get a ton of time on ice, and that certainly was, I think, more the case in the third period because of Gaudreau leaving at the end of the second and not coming back, which will be something to watch. If he isn't able to play in the next one in Toronto, we might get to see Berkeley Catton for the first time, which I'm sure some people will be excited about. We'll see just how ready he is for full NHL action, especially against a good team like Toronto, but we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it. At least for now, that's certainly a reason that they didn't play as much in the third period. But yeah, the Stevenson line looked pretty good. The Wright line looks pretty good. Obviously, Stevenson and Wright account for all 3 Kraken goals in this game. And the first line of Beniers, McCann, and Eberle was still, for my money, the best line of the night. I think maybe you could make the argument for Stevenson's line, but overall, Stevenson's line had the one very good shift where they do score and a couple other pretty decent shifts. Never looked terrible or lost in their defensive end, which had kind of been the problem with that line. But still, with Beniers' line, that line is still the one that certainly most consistently looks like the best line for the Kraken, which it's the first line, so it should, but it's not necessarily given considering where the Kraken roster is at right now. I suppose one last note here that's worth mentioning, right at the start of the second period, Ottawa wins the face-off and goes to dump it in, but it gets dumped right into Dunn's face, and he immediately skates off the ice with blood coming out of the kind of upper cheek area. And fortunately, he would return to the game clearly with some stitches, just goes right to the locker room, gets stitched up, and comes back out and would play a majority of the third period, but obviously not where you wanted. It was the start of the third period. I think I said start of the second. Start of the third period, Dunn gets hit in the face right away, but he's able to come back and finish out the third, so hopefully he's able to keep playing. I'm sure he'll have a pretty nice looking black eye for the next week or so, but he at least got back out there. Like I said earlier, we didn't see Goudreau for the rest of the game, so that will be something to watch, but a couple bumps and bruises here still early on for the Kraken, who are not perfectly healthy, but at least for now, I think it's safe to say there's more to like about how the Kraken are playing than not like. And with that, I think we'll close this one out with the Kraken 3 stars, as always brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide Kraken 3 stars after every regular season, or if they make it playoff game for the Kraken, you can help support a little bit more than you already are by watching to this point, which I do appreciate, by going to the link down below and supporting on Patreon as well. And as for those 3 stars in this game, I think the first one is pretty obvious. It's the only of the Kraken players that actually made the official stars, but 2 goals in the game. Chandler Stevenson has to get it for this one. He had a fairly decent night defensively. For him, I would say a good night defensively, and obviously was able to contribute pretty well offensively. Second star, I mean, it feels boring to just go with Wright since he scored a goal, but he had a couple of other good opportunities getting up in front of the net. He's been, I mean, even before this game, one of the more consistent Kraken players in getting to the net front, really playing that role fairly well, or at least learning the role so far. I mean, he's still not the biggest guy ever, a fairly young player, so that's going to just take some time to get used to, but the willingness to go constantly to the front of the net and be there available for rebounds or try to tip pucks or whatever it might be, he's at least getting to the right spots to try to get these opportunities. And I think he's had a pretty decent, quiet but decent start to the season, and we could see more of this the way that he's been playing fairly well. These, tight areas, still takes a lot of skill to find the puck and lift it in quick order in that time. So, for Wright, a good game. And then the third star, I got to go with Beniers again. He was mentioned on Patreon, as well as Tolvanen and Montour, who I think both could easily be stars as well. I just had to kind of mention what Wright has done well, and he does get the goal, so maybe it's a little bit boring, and I should have gone with like a Tolvanen, who had a pretty decent game, even though he, for the second game in a row, got kind of robbed. Montour also gets a primary assist, so decent game for him. But I'll go with Beniers as the third star. Another good game for Matty. Doesn't get on the score sheet in this one, but he's had a good start to the season. Another game where he had at least one missed opportunity offensively, so if he could start to clean those up and Barry just finish a little bit better offensively, he's starting to get some of those opportunities, and once he's able to start finishing more of them, then he could really start to get that offensive side of the game that we saw in the Calder season in his rookie year back up to complement his fantastic defensive play. As always, I'd love to know what your thoughts are down in the comment section below about this game, just generally your feeling about the Kraken here in the early going of the season. And if you have any different idea of 3 stars, I'd love to know those down in the comments as well. Or if I missed anything, let me know. So until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other. God bless, and go Kraken. And Mariners, please figure this out. Please.